Thank you for joining me for today's lesson on various compromises in the early 1800s. These compromises are intended to deal with the issue of slavery. Which new states and territories will be free, which will be slave? As rising tensions mount in America during this time, we're going to see it's not an easy task. The issue of slave versus free states was particularly coming to a head as new territories and states attempted to join the Union, particularly Maine, which wanted to come in as a free state, and Missouri, which wanted to come in as a slave state. So, as part of the compromise that made both sides somewhat happy. They decided to allow Maine as a free state, Missouri as a slave state, and they determined that the 36th parallel, which runs right through the country, would be the dividing line for future territories and states as to which would be free and which would be slave. Every new area admitted above the line would be free, and any new territory admitted below would be slave. This was a band-aid. It temporarily settled the issue. It helped us decide what to do with the unorganized territory, but we find ourselves later in a new set of circumstances. Following the Compromise of 1820, a lot of land is added to the United States, including Texas being admitted as a slave state, and there's a large tract of land added to the United States in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which was our settlement following the war with Mexico. We gained the entire Southwest, including the land we know today as Las Vegas. And now there are rumblings that the New Mexico Territory, although south of that 36th parallel, does not wish to be a slave state. And so, with the Compromise of 1850, we're going to attempt to renegotiate the terms of which states will be free and which will be slave. Senators such as Henry Clay, who we see pictured in the middle here, attempt to hammer out a compromise. In the end, they don't really make the North or the South fully happy, but Clay, who's from the North, and his ally on the Southern Democrats, John Calhoun, do hammer out a tenuous agreement, which provides for many things. Not only the induction of California into the Union as a free state, but it determines where the Transcontinental Railroad will be built, which is in the middle, not either north or south. And it also decides what to do with new territories who do not want to become slave, but may be below that 36th parallel. Under the terms of the Compromise of 1850, it allows for popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty being the right of the people to choose what happens to them. In this case, whether their territory will be free or slave. And whereas it was a peaceful transition in the Utah and New Mexico territories, neither of which had the right climate for cotton or any other slave labor required farming, there was debate in the Kansas and Nebraska territories, seeing as Kansas was surrounded by slave and free states, and there's bloodshed in these areas, even following the Compromise of 1850. So in summary of our learning today, we can see that though both the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850 had noble goals, they were completely ineffective. They really just put a band-aid on this growing moral and states' rights issue over slavery. And in the end, we do find ourselves in a bloody conflict. Although to men like Henry Clay at the time, it didn't seem inevitable. They truly were moving with a purpose to preserve peace in the country. Thanks for joining me for today's lesson.